I believe you have access to that video. You can get that initial setup from yesterday. So once you have that setup, today is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me quickly share my screen with Atom Editor. Just give me a minute. Okay, so I'm here with my, sorry, you guys remember we created a test project yesterday. And let me pull up the test project in here. Okay. Perfect. So you guys can able to see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let me pull up my code editor to this side here and this guy in here. Guys, can anybody tell me what is the life cycle of a frog? If you remember from your early biology classes, what is the life cycle of a frog? Vishnupriya, do you have any clue?
I feel it's egg, larva, tadpole, and frog.
Exactly, awesome. So you have an egg. While a frog lays the egg converts into a larva, a tadpole larva, then a young frog, then the adult frog, right? Yes, guys, is that right? Yeah. So this is a life cycle of a frog. In the same sense, React also, oh my God. Okay, Vishnupriya, I'm muting for a minute. Is that you or somebody else making the noise? Okay, it's Gautami. Okay, thank you, Gautami. In the same sense, guys, React also has a set of lifecycle methods. Not just React, any UI library, I'm talking about not just React here, any UI library, take it Angular, take it React, or any other UI library, even onto the mobile applications as well, you have a lifecycle method. A lifecycle method is nothing but a set of methods, okay? And each method is called in a particular sequence. Like in case we have a frog, we have an egg. So we have some set of methods calling in an egg. Okay, we have a tadpole larva. We have another set of methods calling in a tadpole larva, right? In the same sense, every React component has set of lifecycle methods. We will discuss one lifecycle method at a time, and the most important lifecycle method of React is a render. Okay, on my screen you can see a render. Okay, let me clear this stuff again and create another. Let me create this React component again for this. We'll just go over it again today. I need someone to help me to create the React component. Can somebody help me? Okay, follow along. The first thing I would do, the first thing I need to have is to have my React, right? So I would import my React and put it into a variable. Let me just make it bigger. The first thing I need is the React library. So import React from my React library. I said yesterday that whenever you do not, everything you see inside the single quotes, it's pulling it from the node modules. So right in here, I'll pulling up the node modules. We installed the node modules yesterday, right? Using the npm install React and npm install React down. Once we have the node modules, we are importing the React library in here. Once we have the React library, we already have a React component. So the guys at the Facebook, they already gave us a very plain component, but we do not need the plain component. We need to extend the React component to have more capabilities, right? And the way we would do that is using a class and name of my React component. Question for the class: can a React component name start with a smaller case? Gautami?
No idea, Vikram.
Okay, yesterday I told you every React component name should start with a capital case, like a capital character. Okay, so I would say app. Okay, A is capital in here, so you cannot do a small case. class. That's how the way React is put up. They had a differentiation. Anything that starts with a capital is a React component. Anything that doesn't start with a capital character becomes a Java, just another JavaScript file. Okay. App extends. Okay, I'm extending my base class of what? So I have to extend on top of something, right? And that becomes my React dot component. Okay, the React component is something I have available. On top of that, I'm creating another component called app. Okay, and this is an object. So the curly brace is an object, right? Inside my object, the first method, the first lifecycle method, the mandatory, it's not the first lifecycle method, guys. It's a mandatory method. The mandatory method is render. Okay, and render is a function. I create this as a function, and the function supposed to have two parentheses. Supposed to have two parentheses and a curly brace, and inside the curly brace, the actual function definition, right? So the function definition goes inside the render. And what the supposed to a render should return? Render is what you see on the UI, right? So render should supposed to return your HTML. So return, and this return, it's returning a view, and we return a view using parentheses, say enter, and say div, okay, and say hello world. Okay, and give it a refresh. Oops, I'm not running my terminal. Oh yeah, there you go. Let me run my terminal real quick. Okay, so I have created my component on my right side is throwing me an error saying that export default was not found in an app. In a JavaScript world, guys, whenever you create something, you have to let the world know that you exist. Okay, and the way you do that is exporting it. And we do using something like this, export, right? So we have a lot of files. You have to tell me, okay, I exist. When somebody is calling you, you should supposed to have a name. So somebody else can call by your name and you listen, right? So in the same sense, you need to export the function, export the component, or export the JavaScript file you just created. Export default and name of my app. Okay, and give it a refresh. And you can see on my right, I've just created a React component using hello world, just a very small React component that says hello world. I would like you guys to go ahead and inside your Chrome, there's something called React Dev Tools. Okay, let me tell you a simple example. Okay, let me just resize this thing and just click on this. If I give it an inspect, guys, for example, let's say instead of a div, inside my div, let's have a h1 tag here. Okay, let's have a h1 tag here. Okay, so that way my text is a little bigger and I can inspect as well. Okay, so here is a h1 tag and I'm just giving it a right click and inspecting it. And inside my inspector, you can see that, okay, you can see in here, right? It's a div tag in here, is a h1 tag in here. But again, this is not my app. It's still a div, right? It's supposed to be a React component. It's not a React component in here. The React library behind the scenes is converting my app into default HTML. But you know what? During the development, I want to see my React code as it is. I have to see my app. Inside my app, I need a h1 tag. But nowhere in here I see the app because it's a plain HTML. I want my React code. For the same reason, we have something called React Dev Tools, and it's only available on the Chrome. You can just say React Chrome extension and React Dev Tools, and you can install this. I already have installed on my machine. If not, you can click on green button in here and that will be installed on your Chrome browser. It's a very small React plugin, okay? and I'm gonna close this. And after you install, try to just inspect the code. Once you inspect it, everything looks cool again. Everything is normal in the HTML elements on elements tab. There's something else interesting. If you all the way go down and see, there's another tab in here. It's called React. Let's give it a click and see what's going on there. And I give it a click, and exactly, and you can see the same exact way how my React code is put. The way app is my component. Inside my app, I have a div, and you can see on my right side, inside my div, and inside my div, I have a h1 tag. This is how you inspect a React code. Okay, during your development, if you could not able to, so we have one simple component in here. It's very simple to know everything is in single place. But if you have hundreds of those components, may not be 100, maybe close to 100 components, it would be very hard to know what is the level of hierarchy. Do you have a h1 tag inside a div tag? Is a div tag sitting in app component? Which component is sitting in which component? You would really have no idea if you're really jumping into a project, right? In that case, this is a very important tool. You can just install it. You run your React application, install the Chrome plugin, and go all the way down to the tabs. And at last, you can see there is a React tab. And inside the React tab, you can inspect your React elements. Any questions so far on this? How to debug the React elements? Gautami, Vishnupriya. Hey Pradeep, thank you for joining in. Guys, I at least need 1 or 2 questions regarding this. I feel like everything is going off your head. Let me know if you have any questions. We haven't started the React development yet. We are just getting started to see how we can debug the React development. Once you're okay with it, you're installing your Chrome plugin and inspecting your React elements. If you're okay with it, let's go and try to do another lifecycle component. I'm sorry, another lifecycle method. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let me tell you a thing. Well, let's focus a little more on the render function. For example, let's say, so you remember the if else cases, right?
Yeah.
From the JavaScript code. Okay, let's create a simple variable called, let's say var. Okay, let me help you. I'm sorry. Can someone help me to create a variable? Vishnupriya, can you help me to create a variable for me? I just need a variable called user and having a string is online.
Var user equal to?
Okay, var user. Let's say is user online. Okay, and I need a boolean in here. How do I create a boolean?
Say just true or
Exactly. Let's say false. Okay, let's say false. And inside my render, look very pay very close attention, guys. This is my render, and inside my render, what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable called is user online is equal to false. And let me try to do a simple if else loop. Okay, if is user online double equal to false, then return a view saying the user is offline. Okay, and in the else condition, let's do the same thing. Okay, let's do the same thing. In else condition, I would return the user is online. Now help me understand, if I save it, what is the execution type? What will be shown on the UI? Okay, I have a render function. The end of the render function is written. Okay, just one thumb rule. The end of the end of the render, not just the render function, guys. Anything in a JavaScript world, if a function is returning something, if at all it finds a return statement, that's the end of the function. Okay, the end of the return render is written. Okay, and what I'm doing in here is creating a variable called is user online, and I say false. Immediately after that, I say if user is online double equal to false. Is it true or false? Is it true or false? If user online double equal to false, what does this return? Is it true,
True.
right? The
Yeah.
condition returns true. The condition is true. So what does it? Which loop it does it enter? It returns the if loop, right?
Yeah.
And what it would return? It would return a false. So user is offline. So give it a safe and refresh it, and it says user is offline. What happened is it was checking the if condition and going inside the loop, and as soon as it finds the return statement, the code stops working from here. So anything after the return statement, it's called a dead code. Okay, as soon as the render function hits the first return, it stops the execution there. Okay, let me show you something else. Okay, let me just clean this stuff off. And no, this is question for you guys. I would do this something like this. Okay, I would do first. This is my first render. Okay. This is my first render. Oh, this is my first return. Okay, and what I do is I do not have any if else loops in here. Instead, I have another return function immediately after the return. Okay, I would like you to answer what does the UI show? Yes, guys, what does the UI show now? I have two returns.
I think second return will be shown.
Who's that, Venkatesh?
Yeah.
That's a good guess, Venkatesh. Can you explain why?
Why? Because the functions always return the last statement. It executed by step process. So
Yes, that's a good guess, Venkat. And anybody else can explain me what does it my UI shows and why?
I think second one, Vikram.
Okay, Gautami and Venkat says that the second one. Anybody on the first one? Guys, in a function, whenever it hits the first return, that's where it stops executing. Okay, now give it a refresh and see it would. So this is a function call in here, and as soon as it returns the first return statement, it stop executing going any forward. So this it will only execute this piece of code which is inside the return, and everything after the return is completely ignored. No matter what, how many returns you have after that, it only looks for the first return. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is called a conditional rendering. Okay. So we use this behavior of function. Okay. This behavior of function to show the UI. You know, if the user have clicked on something, is the user online, if the user is offline. So what we do is, we do a conditional rendering. What I mean by a conditional rendering is, we put in a condition here, like in this case, we say if, and it would return the return function, and it would no longer go to the else condition in any place. If I do something like this, it would skip the if loop and go directly to the else loop. You know what? There's another interesting thing I would do. Instead of else loop, I will not have an else loop at all. Now tell me what happens.
It will automatically return the first one.
Okay, look very closely what happens. where is user online is equal to true. And if this condition is true or false, is user online double equal to true or false?
It's a false.
It's a false, right? The condition is false. Will it enter the if loop?
No.
Nope, right? And the execution continues. And unless and until it finds a return, it continues to execute, okay? And whenever it finds a return, that's where it stops and shows on the UI, okay? Remember this little piece of logic throughout your development. This is what you do. You do conditional rendering. If the data is available, show the data. If the data is not available, show the spinner. If the user is online, show green color button. If the user is offline, show a red color button. If the product is available, show on the UI. If the product is not available, do not show on the UI. Okay?
Okay.
Entire throughout your project, this is what you're gonna do, guys. No matter whichever project is it. If you click on a video, okay, if the user hasn't clicked on a video, do not show the video. If the user clicked on a video, show the video. If is user clicked, so you just have this variables inside, and depending on this variables, you do the conditional rendering, okay? All good for the render part. So render part is what you actually see on the UI. This is the only component lifecycle method, okay? This is the only component life cycle method that returns the view that is shown. Okay, I would stop in here for 3 minutes. Let me try to ask any questions you have. Any questions?
No, Vikram.
Awesome.
Vikram, can you explain export default app? I don't understand that part. Like export default app.
Yes. So, well, whenever you create a React component, not just React component, in JavaScript, you create multiple files, right, Venkat?
Yeah.
How do you reference from one file to another file?
Like
you import the file, right?
Yeah.
For example, let me show you the source part in here. This is my index.js. Okay. You remember from the HTML world, right? The first file that starts the index.html, right? Every browser would look for this little file called index.html, right, Venkat?
Yeah.
Right. In React, you can name it anything, but it's a good practice to name it as index.js file. Inside this index.js file, this is the first file that is loaded when you start the React.
Okay.
Okay. As soon as you start the index.js, you know what? We try to break the things. We try to put the things in a different files. Everything related to messages in a different file, everything related to alerts in a different file. We compose everything and we all put together. That becomes your project, right? In the same sense, we have multiple files in here. And what I'm doing in here is we have the HTML DOM. On top of the HTML DOM, okay, let me show you this diagram for you so you can better understand. This is from class 1. Okay, let me try to pull this up. Training, full course, full teacher, week 2, day 2, images. Just give me a minute. I didn't expect that to be in this class. I'm trying to pull this thing stuff. Okay, day 1. week 1, day 2, week 2, day 2, day 2, day 2, day 2. I'm sorry, Venkat. I really.
No problem. I will see the previous classes. So
Yes, I have a picture of that, but I wasn't prepared to show that on this class.
yeah, no problem.
So let me try. Oh, yeah, there you go. I got it. Okay. So this is how it runs. Okay. On the initial page, you have an HTML, right? You have a
Yeah.
header, you have a body, you have a footer, right?
The
Inside
overall
the
DOM things, sir.
exactly right. These
Yeah.
are this all put together is called a DOM, document object model. It's called just a
Yeah.
HTML document, right?
Yeah.
Once you have the HTML document, you have your header, you have your body, you have your footer. This
Yeah.
is the plain HTML. What we do is inside your body, we create a div.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me parallelly show you the things on the coding part and in here. So what we do is inside the body tag, we create a div.
Yeah.
Okay. This is your first HTML index.html page, as you can see on the top here. So initially we create a div and create an ID for a root. Okay. This is you create the root and ID.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have one question. So every
Yes.
project is start with the index.html, right?
Exactly. No matter what, no, if it's an Angular, Ember, Vue, any project has to start with index.html.
Okay.
It's the it's a web standard. Every web uh, uh, every website or any web app will have to look for this index.html.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there is something different in a WordPress world, but as far as I know, every project starts with index.html.
Okay.
Okay. Once you have your index.html, inside the index.html, you put a ID div. Okay. For
Yeah.
example, Venkat, if I give you a white paper and say, hey, Venkat, can you write your name on the paper? You would ask me, right? Where can I write it? I need to provide you some reference. Okay, Venkat, I put a dot in there. You have to sign next to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same way. We have React and we're asking React, okay, go sit on the DOM. But React wonders, okay, you're asking me to go sit on the DOM. Where would I sit? I have no reference. So DOM is so huge. Where do you want me to sit? What
Yeah.
we do is, okay, listen, React, you go find a div which has a ID of root.
Okay.
Okay, so React goes, okay, well, you know what, I cannot understand, I'm just a React, I need somebody who can go and get an ID for me, and we have React DOM.
Yeah.
In order to run the React web browser React development, we need two packages, the React by itself and the React DOM. Okay, React wonders, where do I go? I know I really don't know how to find this item. I'm good at generating the views, but I don't know how to put the views onto the DOM. And then comes the React DOM, and this guy, what he does is the React DOM talks to the browser. Hey browser, you know what, I'm trying to find a div ID root, do you have anything like that? Okay, and what does is we go to the index.html and find it. Okay, we say, okay DOM, okay React, I found something for you called a root, document.getElement by ID. This is the ID on the HTML page.
Yeah.
Okay, once I found the root, what it does is, okay, React, go sit inside this div.
Yeah.
Okay, inside this div, what is a React component in here? The app is a React component we just created.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like, this guy just found something called a root and asking React, okay React, you know what, I made some space for you on the React on the HTML document, you can go sit there. And that's where the React starts.
Yeah.
Okay, and every React component is inside your app, and we would create our first React component. But we did create a React component, but how does the rest of the project know I exist? And
Yeah.
that's where you do an export. For example, Venkat, if you are importing something from China, your importing is all is good, but is China exporting it? If you want to import weapons from the China, but is it China ready to export it?
Yeah.
Right? China has to make an agreement. Okay, I'm exporting an app. I'm exporting, a component. I'm exporting a JavaScript file. Anybody want to import it? Just say import app from import weapons from China.
So it's like a two-way binding thing, or like
No. There's nothing to do with it. Maybe you probably heard this word from an Angular thing where the model. Model.
I'm asking, like, you put the both import and export, so that is the reason I'm asking.
This is nothing to do with the data binding at all. Okay.
Oh,
we are exporting a file and importing the file. That's all.
Okay.
We are cross communicating.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We're not passing any data in here. We are just importing a file.
I'm not exactly say about the binding, like just the concept. I'm like saying.
Mm-hmm. If you are ready to give something, that's only where I can receive the things.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. This is how you give out the things, and this is how I take in the things.
Yeah.
Okay. And import is an ES6 syntax. I'm not sure if you know anything about an ES6 syntax. I'll discuss an ES6 syntax going forward.
Okay. No. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions so far? Anything about how did we get the export? So we are exporting in here, and we are importing it in the index.js.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah. Okay. All good, guys? Any question? Thank you so much, Venkat, for asking the question. Pradeep, do you have any questions? You've been calm today.
No, Vikram. I mean, my surroundings are a little like noisy, so I don't want to talk.
Okay, are you okay?
I'm clear actually. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Gautami and Vishnupriya, you're good, right?
Yeah, Vikram.
Okay, perfect. Yes. What is the first what is the must and should have component lifecycle in React, Gautami?
Default.
Render.
Yeah.
Okay. I say component lifecycle. Okay, CL, component lifecycle. CLC. Okay, great. So, okay, this is all is good, and I have things showing up. You know what? This component is all good, but this component is static. What I mean by static is I'm not unable to do any interactions with it. The user is online. That's all I'm able to do. There's nothing else I'm unable. I'm unable to make any interactions, right? So you know what? This is kind of a soulless component. It needs to have a soul, and the soul inside React is called a state. Okay. You might probably heard this term when you talk about the React. State and render are so. What is that? Okay, so we're talking about lifecycle methods, and we talked about how we see the render function, right? So let's talk about the state. So a state is kind of a little, very small JSON object. You know how to create, Vishnupriya, can you help me to create an object in JavaScript? A person object? Vishnupriya, a person object for me, please, with a name and age.
Var name equal to a person hyphen age. I mean, open braces, person hyphen age.
What's this?
Yeah, I mean, person equal to something, a person hyphen name and age equal to.
Okay, so with something like this. Something like this?
Yes, Vikram.
Okay. So this is an object, guys. this can also become the state of the component. Stay for me a little while. State is a very confusing topic in React, and the whole React works on the simple concept called state. Before that, did anybody watch a movie called Inside Out? It's a very cool movie. Let me show you. You might probably watch this movie called Inside Out. Did you?
Yes, Vikram.
Did you, Vishnupriya?
Yes, Vikram.
You know what's the concept of this movie?
Yeah, it shows you the different shades of your character. Like and the person wants to, I mean, like, person in any situation has to be happy. It's the end of the story.
It's like, you know, you are talking from an empty conference room. But okay, that was thank you so much for the movie summary. But let me tell you real quick, okay? It says the movie, the whole summary of the movie is, you know what, guys? Every person has 5 characters within them. They have a driving seat on your head, okay? You consider yourself as like a vehicle, and on your head there is a driving seat. And whoever sits on the driving seat is how you behave. If the guy write to me, anger is sitting on the driving seat, you become angry. Okay, if the fear is sitting on your driving seat on your head, you are fear, you know, you are afraid. If the joy is sitting, you're really happy. Okay, this is your state of mind. So who drives you is what you are at any point of time, right? Makes sense?
Yeah.
In the same sense, guys, React is driven by the state. How is the state of the component is what you see on the UI. Okay, very simply, very quickly, let's create another component lifecycle method, and this component lifecycle method is called constructor. Okay, and this constructor is the first and the foremost method that is called when the component is first mounted or first shown on the UI. Okay, so the constructor super props. Okay, this dot state, this is a component lifecycle method. The constructor tells you to create a state for you. Okay, the constructor tells the React world, okay, this React component is about to create a state. Now right now we do not have a state in our component. We are about to create a state. Okay, we are creating a constructor. We absolutely do not need a super in here right now. When we create a child component, I'll let you know why we need a super there. And we are creating a state. Inside the state, let me create a variable called name, and let's say Venkat. Okay, this is my very small state, guys. I do not really have anything inside my state. What's going on? Oh, this is not allowed before the super. Okay, there you go. So the super allows to bind your constructor. I wasn't sure. This is my first time. Which version of React we are in? Okay, the latest version. So the previous versions of React was helped me to create a component without using a super. So right now you can see I've created a super. I'll get back to you why we have to do a super in here. Okay, but try to understand this little piece in here. This dot state is a component. This is the state of your component. Okay, this is like a little database inside your component, and this every time, you know what, every time a set state happens inside your component, I'll tell you. Okay, so we have created a state in here. We will try to access this state. Okay, and the way we can access this state is inside your view. Inside your view, you do a curly brace, and this is your React component. Okay, whenever this is a very confusing topic in the JavaScript world, in React, this is your React component. What is the name of my React component? Guys, what is the name of my React component?
App.
App, right? So app is my current React component. So this becomes my React component. So whenever I say this inside this curly braces, this becomes app, okay? And this dot, and this component has a state within it, right? This dot state, right? And Gautami, how to access the name variable inside the state? If you remember from the objects dot notation.
Sorry, Vikram.
Yes, if you remember the object notation, dot notation, right? I think you are the first one to answer that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this dot state dot. How do I access the name variable here?
We can dot Venkat or sorry,
So
dot name.
Dot name, exactly.
Yeah.
And my UI shows the name property. If I give it a little refresh, and you can see on my right side, I really do not have anything hard coded here, right? I really am not doing any hard coding. But what I'm doing is I'm creating a state here and accessing the state, right? Okay, Venkat, let's say Dave, and let's have the age of the Dave as well. Okay, age of the Dave is 60. Can somebody help me how to access the age from the state?
Yeah, like in
Vishnupriya?
this.
Yes.
This dot state dot age.
Perfect. You're very loud and clear today. Thank you. Okay, I give it a refresh and you can see the things. And you can create any number of state variables inside your state. Okay. Okay. One quick thing. We created a component lifecycle called constructor. We created a state and immediately. Okay, let me show you something else. What do you think the first component lifecycle that is called? Is it the constructor or the render?
Actually, render is the one, but in the render is the first component lifecycle.
I think the constructor is within render.
Exactly, the constructor is the first component lifecycle. If you do not have a constructor, then the render is called. Okay, Venkat?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and I will do a simple console log and say this message from constructor. Okay, this message is from constructor, and I would say this message is from render, and open our console log and give it a run and see which is calling first. Okay, and you can see who is calling. The order of the console log is the way the order of the component life cycles are called. And you can see the constructor is called first and then the render is called, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So these are the two component life cycles. Let's try to understand another component life cycle, and what the charm of React is the component lifecycle names are self-explanatory. What I mean by that is, look at this. Component will mount. Look at the way the lifecycle method name is created. It says component will mount. It says it's going to mount. Whenever I say mount, it's about to show on the UI. Okay, and you can see there that it says component will mount, and even before the render, this component lifecycle is called. Let me give it a console login here and show you. This message is from component will mount. Okay, and what would be the order of my messages, guys? Hello. What would be the order of my messages? I'm giving it a refresh and you can see the first method that is called is constructor. Okay, first, and this is a second method, and this is my third method. Okay, and you know what? There's another component lifecycle method that is called after the render. Okay, and this component lifecycle is called, guess what is the component lifecycle name might be? We say will mount here. What is the past tense of will? I will do it. Or what else I can say? Yes, Pradeep?
Mounted.
mounted, right? What if
Yeah.
I can say something like this? Component did mount.
Yeah.
Did mount, right? This is the same sense. Instead of mounted, he just preponed the will with a did. I will do it. I did, right? In this component lifecycle method is called after the render function. Okay, this is a very important question, guys. People keep asking again and again and again. What is the difference between? Okay, let me ask you this question to Venkat. Venkat, what is the difference between component will mount and component did mount?
The component will mount will come before the render.
Perfect.
Component did mount will comes after the render.
Okay, just a correction. You telling it as comes. You have to say component will mount is called or triggered. These are the
okay.
programming terms. Okay, it's
Okay, triggered,
component will mount is triggered before the render, or component will mount is called before the render. Component did mount is called after the render. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Now we have created a state in here, and we are accessing the state variable. Let me just comment this component lifecycle method for a minute, and let's go back to try to understand a component will mount. You might probably know, okay, Vikram, I understand this thing. There is a constructor, there is a render. I see you're telling that you're creating a state in a constructor. That's fair enough. You're creating a state, and on the render, you're accessing the state. Then what is the use of component will mount? I do not see a reason. Guys, there is a reason. Because you know what? After we created the state, we might probably, get a chance to change the state, right? And the way we change the state variables is, this is my component name of my component dot set state. Okay. Look at my wording in here. It's called a set state, a small s and a capital S. Okay, and this is a function, and inside my function I have to set an object. So the object goes object like this. And what is the variable right now I have inside my state? I have a name, I have an age, right? Let me try to change the name of the person from the name Dev to Mark. Okay, I'm not giving it a save, but I would like to ask you a question. What does the UI show? What does the UI show if I save it? Because you know what? The first component lifecycle we called is a state. We created a state variable called Dev. And even before it shows up on the UI, we are changing it to something else. What do you think the UI shows now? Vishnupriya, take a chance.
Mark, Vikram.
Why?
Because you are setting this, you are using the set state component, which will set the state of.
Okay, set the state of the variable, right? I'm setting the
Yes.
state even before it shows up on a UI. I'm giving it a refresh and you can see, right? Okay, help me to change the, let me clear this off. Guys, help me to set the state of an age. I want to change the state, age of from 60 to 70. Can you help me to do that?
This dot set state.
Okay, as in S capital state. Can somebody take an access? Yes, can somebody take an access and code on my computer? Anybody ready? Okay, let me do this for one time, and going further, be prepared. You have to take the access and code on my system. Okay, the camel case, right? Thank you, Pradeep. It's a camel case there, and set state. It's a function. Okay. This is also an interview question. How do you change the state variable? How do you change the state in your React component? Venkat, how do you answer this question? How do you change the state in your React component?
How do I change the React comp?
Yeah, how do you change the state in a React component? Using this dot set state, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a straightforward question. Answer,
Yeah.
right? Page 70. So how do you change? Vishnupriya, how do you set it? How do you change the state of a component? using the set state, right?
Yes, Vikram.
Perfect. You know what? This is good and all. Vikram, you just told me there was another component lifecycle called ComponentDidMount. You know what? You created a state and you took a chance to change the state of the component and you rendered and you showed. But I don't see a reason you need a ComponentDidMount. Why would you like to? What would you like to do in there? It's you know I do not see a reason. It's already you're showing it on the UI immediately after the render. What does a ComponentDidMount do? You know what?
If you want to update it later after we render the page.
What is that, Pradeep?
If we wanted to update something after we render the page.
Exactly. You might have probably seen in a lot of your websites. As soon as the website loads, it tries to show a spinner, and after a few milliseconds, you see the data. You go to the YouTube, not just the spinner. You see the flashy content. A little flashy content, and immediately after that, you see the actual content. Have you experienced it? A lot of websites do this. Let me go to your YouTube, and as soon as I click on the YouTube, you can see the little flashy content going on, right? Let me do that again. The gray part. You see there's a gray part here? Okay, and immediately after that, I get the content. This is what is happening inside our ComponentDidMount, guys. If your data is getting okay, let me do not go to the data part right now. Okay, let me do another thing. What I would do is I would set the state of my component inside my ComponentDidMount. Okay, let me do in here, and the name of the dev inside the ComponentWillMount is say Mark. Okay, and inside my ComponentDidMount, this is after showing on the UI, right? And I would say Cliff. Okay, if I save, what do you think that shows on the UI? So I initially set the state of a component as dev, a name variable dev, and immediately after ComponentWillMount, I'm not showing anything yet, but even before I'm showing something, I changed it to Mark, and I'm showing something in here. After showing something and changing the state, what happens?
First it shows the mark, then it later changes to the cliff, like after some rendering time.
Awesome. Wow. How did you figure that, Venkat?
Yeah, whatever you said, the YouTube example, I took that one.
Exactly, right? So I give it a little refresh, and there is a very small fraction of a second. I really cannot show you on my UI. A very fraction of second, even there's a time, maybe in nanoseconds, where it calls the render function, it shows the mark immediately after the render ComponentDidMount. It set the set state, and immediately after the set state happens, the render function is called. Render and state are so close friends, guys. They what? Every time a render function, every time every time a state change happens, they are so close. Like it tells the render function, hey render, listen, you know what? I got a new update in my state. Do you want to take a look? And immediately render reacts to it and says, oh yeah, I would like to take a look. Okay, and the way it does is the component is mounted. Immediately after the mounted, the first component lifecycle is constructor is called. Immediately after that, the ComponentWillMount is called. A render is called. Okay, it shows up on the UI, and the ComponentDidMount is called. Okay, and whenever this magic happens, this set state, a new state, something new is available in the state, and immediately render is called again. Let me show you how this works on the console log. Okay, let me give it a console log, and on the console, see what is going on. It first calls the render function, which is fair enough. Okay, that's great. And it ComponentWillMount is called. Okay, the state is changed to mark. Immediately after that, the render is called. This is good as well. You know what? This is good. And after the render, ComponentDidMount is also called. Okay, until this point is good. And you see there's another culprit here. A render is called again, right? And this is why we use a state in a component. Every time we do a set state, a render function is triggered again and again and again. No matter how many times you do a set state, every set state will trigger a new render function. Okay. Any questions so far? There should be a lot of questions in and around ComponentWillMount set state and ComponentDidMount set state, and why not can I do something like this? Okay, I would like someone to answer this. Can I do something like this? Okay, what happens now? What does my UI show? A very interesting thing, and an interview question. Can you do a set state inside the render? A silence is a word of acceptance.
I think no, I don't have exact answer, but why? Because render is basically used to view the overall component.
Right, and another piece of logic that is missing. I told every time a set state happens, a render is called. But what if we are doing a set state inside the render that goes into an infinite loop? Okay, I gave it a refresh.
Yes, yeah.
And the JavaScript.
Even I thought that, but I mean, I didn't know.
Right. See, it would yell at me saying that you go thousands of times render is called and it reached an extension where the browser has crashed. Okay. So you cannot absolutely do a set state. Render is supposed to be a pure function which does not have a set state inside it. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Now, any questions? I would break in here for today. I'll be here for another 7 minutes. If you have any questions, please ask.
Like, can you show like a life cycle, like in a picture of this whole thing, so that we'll have better understanding?
Right. You know what? I was pretty busy today. I could not able to create any, but I can show you something from the online. The picture speaks 1,000 words, right, Pradeep?
Yeah, I mean, even when you explain, if you show the whole picture, it's better to catch with the ideas actually.
Right. So this is how it goes. You might probably see that the ComponentWillMount render a ComponentDidMount. Okay, we are on the mounting phase right now. We haven't went over the updating and the unmounting phase. We are in the mounting phase. Okay, we are only on initial mount. First thing, we'll talk about an updating and we'll talk about the unmounting as well. ComponentWillMount render ComponentDidMount. Get initial state, which is a constructor. ComponentWillMount will set your state and component. If you can see in here, mounted, render is called a mounted, has been rendered. I think I have to create one on my own. I do not see anything that is valid. Okay, there you go. Constructor, ComponentWillMount, render, ComponentDidMount. Is this something you're looking for, Pradeep, or more detailed? How does a flow diagram or something different?
Yeah, I mean, for this one, I think it's, but I thought it would be like a cycle. No, so this is just like mounting state, right? Mounting.
It's the mounting state. Once you have get initial state, constructor, ComponentWillMount, and render, and then you can see ComponentDidMount. That's all. Okay, this is on the mounting phase. We will discuss about the updating phase in the coming classes. Okay.
Okay, Vikram.
Any more questions? Oh, there you go. It's a very clear component lifecycle in here. The first thing is it does not do a good job in here. Will update, render, we did update, will mount, did mount. Okay, It's a complete cycle. It's not just the mounting cycle, it's a complete cycle. I'll try to create one on my own and show you guys, okay? Any more questions?
And one
Yes.
question, Vikram. So
Yeah.
what is the difference between mounting and updating, the basic thing about the mounting?
You know what? For example, let's say you have a list of customers, Venkat, okay?
Okay.
That's mounting.
Okay.
Okay. And you are clicking on a particular customer and updating the information.
Okay.
That's updating.
Yeah.
You're deleting the customer. That's unmounting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So, and how things are going with you guys? Everything good? No complaints? Vishnupriya, are you in the job right now?